Now we're going to get to the precise thing that Barton quoted here. First, let me my introduction of it in my book. In his bill for amending the Constitution of the College of William and Mary, Jefferson proposed that the number of professorships be increased to 8 plus the Brafferton. He also specified the duties of the Brafferton professorship and made it very clear that it was for these specified duties and not whatever religious instruction this professor might engage in that college funds would be used. In the bill, he called the position, quote, this is what Jefferson called the position, missionary for Indian history, etc. And here's what Jefferson wrote. The said professors shall likewise appoint from time to time a missionary of approved veracity to the several tribes of Indians, whose business shall be to investigate their laws, customs, religions, traditions, and more particularly their languages, constructing grammars thereof, as well as may be, and copious vocabularies, and on oath to communicate from time to time to the said president and professors the materials he collects to be by them laid up and preserved in their library, for which trouble the said missionary shall be allowed a salary at the discretion of the visitors out of the revenue of the college. That was Jefferson's description of what the Brafferton professorship was going to be. He couldn't totally say that the professor wouldn't teach religion, but nowhere does he say that they actually would or had to. And like I say, he renamed the position a missionary for Indian history, etc. So he's still calling it a missionary, but obviously the duties of this missionary were not going to be religious. So I think Barton's proof that that's Jefferson not secularizing William and Mary is kind of out the window there. And then Barton's conclusion from that, of course, because he omits those, a missionary of history or whatever, Barton goes on, Jefferson took steps to ensure that the gospel was promoted at William and Mary, but not just according to the 39 Anglican Articles and that church's denominational catechism. I already read this part, I guess. Yeah, so that's it. That's the point where I think Barton really is actually going to get to the University of Virginia. Okay, in the same manner, the manner that Barton now says he has proved, in the same manner, Jefferson sought to ensure that the University of Virginia would also reflect denominational non-preferentialism. He therefore invited the seminaries of many denominations to establish themselves on the campus, explaining, we suggest the expediency of encouraging the different religious sects to establish each for itself a professorship of their own tenets on the confines of the university, so near as that their students may attend the lectures there and have the free use of our library, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that is the standard lie for every religious, right, history revisionist writing about the University of Virginia. This is what they rely on. Okay, this supposed plan to establish seminaries on the University of Virginia. I need to refer to my book here. Hey, here it is. This whole seminaries at the University of Virginia thing is based on something in the Board of Visitors 1822 report, where they extended this invitation to the religious sects to basically shut up the clergy members and members of the legislature who were attacking Jefferson because the university was totally secular. The problem here was that this was holding up Jefferson getting the funding to finish building, like the rotunda and stuff. So the Board of Visitors in 1822 extended an invitation for all of the sects to establish their own seminaries near the university. So I'm just going to read, in my book, of course, I'm quoting David Barton's older book, Original Intent, but it's basically the same. The Board of of Visitors' 1822 invitation to the religious sects to establish their own schools near the University of Virginia is the source of a number of lies, all of which contain some combination or variation of the following three claims. That the invitation was extended by Jefferson to promote religious instruction at the university, that religious schools were invited to build on state property, that these schools were actually built and attended by university students. According to David Barton in his book Original Intent, Jefferson, quote, expected students to participate in the various religious schools which he personally had invited to locate adjacent to and upon the university property. David Barton, like most liars for Jesus, completely ignores all of the letters in which Jefferson and Madison, as well as Joseph Cabell, another member of the Board of Visitors, made it perfectly clear that the reason for the invitation was to stop the clergy's attacks on the university. Cabell, as mentioned earlier, was a member of the university's Board of Visitors as well as a member of the Virginia legislature. Jefferson did see some good that could come from the sects accepting the invitation, but it wasn't that university students would attend their religious schools. It was that future ministers might attend classes at the university and study science, which he saw as the best remedy for religious fanaticism. The following is from one of the many letters in which Jefferson gave the real reason for the invitation. This particular letter was written to Thomas Cooper in 1823, shortly after Jefferson learned from Joseph Cabell that the invitation had, in fact, been effective in stopping the use of the clergy's rumors by the university's enemies in the legislature. We disarmed them of this calumny, however, in our last report by inviting the different sects to establish their respective divinity schools on the margin of the grounds of the university, so that their students might attend its schools and have the benefit of its library, to be entirely independent of it at the same time, and no ways incorporated with it. One sect, I think, may do it, but another, disdaining equality, ambitioning nothing less than a soaring ascendancy, will despise our invitation. They are hostile to all education of which they have not the direction, and foresee that this institution, by enlightening the minds of the people and encouraging them to appeal to their own common sense, is to dispel the fanaticism on which their power is built. That's what Jefferson wrote about the invitation. The sect that Jefferson knew would despise the invitation was the Presbyterians. The sect he thought might accept it was the Episcopalians. For reasons explained later in this chapter, Jefferson wasn't concerned about Virginia's other two significant sects, the Baptists or the Methodists, because they just had no interest in opening schools at the time. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. The deal with the Episcopalians, at first Jefferson thought they might accept the invitation, but it turned out they were trying to reestablish the Episcopalian seminary at William and Mary that Jefferson had abolished in 1779, so they were busy with that. So, in short, none of the sects took the university up on their offer, so there never were any seminaries, religious seminaries, at or near the university. The Board of Visitors needed to stop the clergy's rumors for two reasons. The first was that they were interfering with the board's selection of professors. The second was that the university's enemies in the legislature were effectively using these rumors in conjunction with their accusations that Jefferson was being extravagant and wasting public money to block the funding needed to finish the university's buildings. In January 1820, John Holt Rice, a Presbyterian minister and editor of the Virginia Literary and Evangelical magazine, published an article that, among other things, accused the university of promoting Unitarianism while excluding Trinitarian Christianity. Rice's accusation was based on the appointment of Thomas Cooper as the university's first professor. Dr. Cooper was a Unitarian and had a reputation for being outspoken about his religious opinions. Dr. Rice, assuming that clergymen were to be excluded from professorships at the university, claimed that the appointment of Dr. Cooper, although not a clergyman, was an unfair promotion of Unitarianism. Okay, now somebody sent Thomas Cooper a copy of John Holt Rice's attack on the university, in which he was using Cooper to rile people up. Jefferson had only himself heard about Rice's article a few days before receiving a letter from Cooper saying he'd resign. Now, at this point in 1820, Jefferson underestimated how much damage John Holt Rice's attacks were going to do. So when Cooper offered to resign, Jefferson really wanted this guy to be a professor. When Cooper offered to resign, this is what Jefferson wrote back as initial assessment of the Rice situation. The Baptists are sound Republicans and zealous supporters of their government. The Methodists are Republican mostly, satisfied with their government meddling with nothing but the concerns of their own calling and opposing nothing. These two sects are entirely friendly to our university. The Anglicans are the same. The Presbyterian clergy alone, not their followers, remain bitterly federal and malcontent with their government. They are violent, ambitious of power, and intolerant in politics as in religion, and want nothing but license from the laws to kindle again the fires of their leader John Knox, and to give us a second blast from his trumpet. Having a little more monkish learning than the clergy of the other sects, they are jealous of the general diffusion of science, and therefore hostile to our seminary, lest it should qualify their antagonists of the other sects to meet them in equal combat. Not daring to attack the institution with the avowal of their real motives, they peck at you, at me, and at every feather they can spy out. But in this they have no weight, even with their own followers, excepting a few old men among them who may still be federal and Anglo men. Their main body are good citizens, friends to their government, anxious for reputation, and therefore friendly to the university. So in 1820, Thomas Jefferson didn't think Rice was going to cause a big problem. Jefferson also assumed, based on previous experience, that the other sects would band together against the Presbyterians regardless of the issue, if it appeared that that sect was in any way trying to get control of the university. He soon realized he was wrong about this, writing the following to William Short only a month after his letter to Cooper. The serious enemies are the priests of the different religious sects, to whose spells on the human mind its improvement is ominous. Their pulpits are now resounding with denunciations against the appointment of Dr. Cooper, whom they charge as a monotheist in opposition to their tritheism. Hostile as these sects are in every other point to one another, they unite in maintaining their mystical theogony against those who believe there is one God only. So basically, this is what started the attacks that led to Jefferson and the Board of Visitors extending that invitation to the religious sects to open their seminaries.